Hello and welcome to The Wizard and the Priestess. My name is Nuala and my co-host is...
Matt. So I know we've just gone through preconception. We've gone through the journey of pregnancy. Birth. Now we are in...
the postpartum
era. Okay.
So we are going to touch straight away on an instant postpartum.
Yep.
So this is as soon as your baby comes out of your womb, your placenta has been delivered, your now baby is on your chest, you are holding them. What is happening in this moment physiologically is that there's been a spiral occurring, one energetic and one physically, where the blood flow has been moving in one direction, and now physiologically the blood flow is now changing direction.
Mm-hmm.
And there is this movement that happens, and that is what tends to happen when babies' hearts don't work properly,
Right.
or they think that there might be something going on with their heart.
Yeah.
It's actually that the process of that transition, that spiral that was going in, I can't think of the direction. What way does the blood spiral through the heart? Is it clockwise or
Yep.
anti-clockwise?
Clockwise.
So it's been moving anti-clockwise through the inside of the womb. Now as that baby's been born, it's moving now clockwise.
Right.
So that transition that happens as the breath starts, as the system turns on, as the child moves from fetus to child, as the death of the fetus occurs and the child becomes born, that is happening physically.
Mm.
Physiologically, there is a process where there is an energetics of the spiral. So we've spoken about the 5 elements previously that goes from kidney, through liver, through heart, down to earth and down into metal. Heart being fire. And we've seen that spiral happening.
Mm.
Now that actually is spiraling backwards as well.
Okay.
So it's like these two, so it's like the infinite ring, right?
Yep.
So they're moving, one is moving in one direction, one is moving in the other direction.
Yep.
And so you're imagining that this 5 element energetics has now changed direction as well. So where we've gone from the generational cycle, which is growing life,
Yeah.
there is also the other aspect, which is moving in the opposite direction. It's called something else and I've got, I don't know, my brain's let it go.
It's been a big day.
Either way. So that is happening physiologically. So energetically, not only is this baby very vulnerable to what is happening, has been happening throughout that whole birth process, it's now landing into this connection to human life, to human form, to breathing, to being one with mother, to being one with this new energetic flow. And so she's sort of bringing that all together now. And the mother in this moment ideally has been able to traverse birth in her power. She is able to sit and now feel the embrace of this new child, this new being, and just feel all the love, all the oxytocin, all of the energy that just feels, wow, I made it, I did it. We have traversed all of that and now I get to sit in this energy. And it is the most profound feeling you could ever feel. It may not be that, oh, I just love my baby so much. That mightn't be the feeling you get. But after physiological birth, you should and will feel a sensation of like deep let go, deep softening and landing. And the thing is, in these immediate postpartum, we're still very much vulnerable. The veil is still very much down. And I would say this veil stays down for very down for the next 5 days.
What do you mean by veil?
Veil of between this world and that. It's sort of like this spiritual,
Right.
but maybe we can call it something even less metaphysical, more like energetically she's open, very open, deliberately so that if she needs to run and jump or whatever she needs to do, she's capable of moving and being aware of what danger is. Now,
She's basically off planet almost.
Yes, completely off the
So
planet.
is that the veil you're talking about?
That
So
is
she's
the
coming back to Earth.
Coming back to
Right,
Earth again.
okay.
After being in the portal of birth,
Sure.
which I didn't even touch on the word portal in birth, but you're literally taken into another vortex in another world.
Yeah.
And then now you're still in the vortex in that initial postpartum. So what's happening in that time is monumental. You're rebuilding this new human that is now mother or mother again. And so being really conscious of the importance of those initial moments, hours, days, weeks, and so that she can process this experience that she's had. And so allowing herself to feel all the feelings.
Yeah.
So one of the big things is to obviously, as we've spoken about in preparation for birth, it is really important that there is also a preparation for the postpartum in place. Quite a common thing I find, at least in the past, with the people I walk with, there's an awareness now of the importance of the postpartum. 5 years ago, when I did my master's thesis on postpartum care with traditional Chinese medicine, less so known.
What about the registered model?
Registered model, aware
Okay.
of the importance of postpartum, but mainly in relation to the psychological health of a mother. So making sure that she's, not ready straight away to hurt herself or her baby.
Yeah.
And the physical health of her potential birth wear and tear or breastfeeding, those things. And then obviously baby's health within those first day, 24 hours.
Yep.
To 48 hours, they're being checked and checked and checked and checked. Risk averted.
Right.
So yes, that, but then anything else outside of that, no. There's no real, yes, you should eat food, but there's no consciousness in the terms of what sort of food should she eat. Well, she should eat warm cooked foods. She should eat foods that are easy to digest, that are palatable, but also soft. So that the digestive system, which is very weak, has time to rebuild.
So fermented foods?
I would be more thinking my position in those first, say, 3 to 5 days or even 3 to 7 days would be, congee rice soup.
Right. So it's really just simple.
Simple.
Right.
Not a lot of spice at that point. Lots of teas, lots of hydration. I know in my first postpartum, my partner was, I was like, I need 5 meals a day. Those meals can be anything of this. And I need you to offer them to me because I'm not thinking about them. I'm now thinking about this baby. So he would cook every meal. So we would have, I had congee placenta for the first few days, pretty much all I had. And then after that, I had like a seaweed soup with side of congee sometimes. I was having herbal teas often, usually freshly brewed herbs. And then I would have, just very, very simply soupy things. Second pregnancy, very similar foods again in the first few days. However, my first meal post-birth was like a fish and mashed potato or something. It felt different. And I felt like that's what I wanted. I really wanted some fish in that time. And then after that, there was a lot of soup. Then slowly, once you hit to the 7 days, things like more bone broth, I would have focused on more like warm smoothies. So I would make smoothies, but they would be warm. They'd be cooked on a saucepan. And that essentially was my partner's job. He provided all those things for me. And so I was consuming really good food, as in simple good food, warm food, warm slop, essentially for the first, say, 2 weeks or 10 days. And then once I hit, say, 7 to 10 days, I started introducing more slow-cooked meats, slow-cooked soups, things like that. So there was those pieces coming together after that. And then after that, it was more, more of the same for essentially, like I would have soups and slow-cooked meats and congee rice, and then as you so what I usually recommend my patients to do is create their village of women and what they can offer. And a lot of that is usually the option for a meal train, the option for companionship, those sorts of things, the option for a friend to come over and spend some time to just listen to your birth story. I often would recommend after about 5 days that it's up to you when you feel like closing the portal of birth. So through the lead into birth, there's a bit of a portal opening. So in my circle, we tend to do a mother ceremony, which is all about blessing the mother and her pregnancy, opening the portal, being her support and care, prefacing how we're going to support her through her postpartum, how we'll show up for her and what we're going to offer. Also sharing beautiful words, beautiful gifts, things like that. The gift usually being in the form of massage and touch and, bathing her in love.
Yeah.
And then in the postpartum, we tend to do a ceremonious closing of the portal. And so in that ceremonious closing, we tend to come together. We'll wrap her up, following on the traditional it is a bit more of a South American tradition to close the bones in this way, but there's also, it's very Chinese, very Korean, to ensure that the abdomen is closed. So I usually recommend closing down the portal within the first 7 days to 2 weeks.
And what does that involve?
We usually would sit in circle, same thing again, revere the mother, listen to her birth story, hold space for her to share whatever it is that she wants to share, honor her, massage her, wrap her up, tightly wrap her up in cloth.
So
literally wrap her up, like mummify her.
Yep.
And after we've massaged every piece of her body, then we sing to her, hold space for her, feed her, not like literally, but bring food and share space together, and then honor the baby. So we usually honor the baby. I kind of created this thing where I like us to offer the baby kind of like the fairy godmothers. So like a piece of ourselves that, we're going to continue to share with this child as they traverse their life.
Not literally taking a chunk, just
no chunks physical, no, but more that
just
idea
clarity
of like,
for the audience, that's all.
Okay. Sorry, guys, if you were thinking that you were going to share a piece of your actual flesh, but Matt went there, so I guess we'll just clarify that. But no more like, I just like that idea of going into yourself and choosing the best piece of you that you can pass on. So it's sort of a bit of a reflective piece for the aunties to get involved in a way and be like, okay, actually,
It's a nice symbology, yeah.
Thank you. And so it's been really beautiful to be a part of this kind of culture creating. I'm sure it is absolutely not, I'm not creating these things, but it's more about bringing that back, bringing this ancestral wisdom back and allowing that to kind of resonate through the community of women that making babies and birthing babies.
Yep.
That feels really beautiful, but we do that. And it's just, I think the most important thing in supporting a postpartum woman is to be aware that she's very vulnerable and she's been immensely expanded. So when you go in, you still clear your energy before you enter that door.
Yeah.
You don't go in.
Because she's really susceptible to everything, like completely open. Yeah.
So if you go in there and like, oh man, Jane, did you hear what Jane did? Or like if you're, you've just experienced some really traumatic information, it's not the thing to be sharing with a really open mother.
No, because she's an empty cup at that point, and everything in her vicinity puts a little bit into that cup. Yeah.
And it is something to like, that's really cool that you say it like that, but being really conscious of that in a sense. It's like that empty cup, right? That could be, that's her motherhood cup. And how are we filling it back up?
Boom.
How are we refueling what is going to be her motherhood journey? And
it's a brand new cup too.
Totally. And essentially it's like that porcelain cup that's been like infused with gold, that idea of the broken cup, and then they've like put it together with the gold plates. It's like that's the cup, right? She was broken open through birth, through the portal, and she's come back, and now the gold is being put back into that actual cup itself. So how are we feeling? What sort of thread are we feeling through the porcelain to actually hold the cup together? So that is like next level. And this has been known traditionally. And in the ancestral model, this is like so important to really hold her, to honor her, and to continue to see her as the miracle creator of life, to give her this space.
So if someone doesn't have exposure to that or access to that, for whatever reason, what would you recommend, say?
I would say that in the preparation for your birth, you need to be extra focused on the preparation for your postpartum. Right. So how you could do that for yourself without having a group of aunties or sisters or friends and family that are walking or traversing this path with you is to create some physical ritual. So personally, in my first birth, I had set myself up with a moxa stick and some massage oils that were specific for like mainly just jojoba, but then there were some like rose-infused jojoba oil and things like that, really loving energetically. I also set myself up with some postpartum herbs so that I could do either a yoni steam or or do sitz baths or baths with the herbs within the bath to support healing of my vagina and my body. And then I would do things like dry brushing. So I would dry brush. I did this kind of ritual every day for the first few weeks with my first baby, where I would, and maybe not every day, but every other day I would do dry brushing. Then I would jump in the bath. I would sit there for an hour. I might listen to some really nice music. I'd get out. I'd then either massage my body with the oil or get my partner to. And then I would get him to do some moxa over my back. And I guess I'm thinking that this would be something that you have available, your partner available. Now, if you don't have a partner available, it's going to be really hard. But then you need to have a postpartum doula available or a mother or someone within your vicinity. It is incredibly difficult to traverse the initial postpartum alone, and it shouldn't be done.
It's not designed to be done alone.
It's not designed. No. So I would incorporate, at least at the very least, if you don't have a village of women that are really supporting this process of vulnerability, I would stay away from them. I would keep myself very separate. And I would wait until I felt well enough to receive others' energy, which is really hard through motherhood because, you know, we all have different ideas and choices that we make. But it is, you know, being conscious of who that village can be and who can come in. But if you are alone, it's to ritualize yourself and do this yourself. Honor yourself. So I was really particular about the postpartum after my first baby, same with my second baby, but I did have more of a village my second baby, so I had a lot more of my women coming over and just spending a few hours with me. I probably saw a close friend every day for the first few weeks of my second baby, and they would take out my older daughter, who was 2 at the time, for a few hours and then come back. And then we would just be together, you know, and then I would spend the time with them and they would, you know, were able to listen to me and I could talk through anything that I wanted to talk through and all those bits and pieces. So yeah, I'm really into self-massage in that time, really focused however you birth, no matter how you birth. All of these pieces can be done. I guess in terms of having baths is probably not a recommended thing for someone who's had a surgical birth. However, if you're open to birth, having those baths, I mean, it is pretty cool what you're saying last week about maybe not showering for a while. Like you don't need to clean. It's not about cleaning. It's more about like touching and nourishing. And I mean, oil is probably going to wash away the microbials that the baby's laying on, but maybe you just I never put oil on my breasts or across the top of my chest, but I definitely massaged my belly and the rest of my body. So it actually is sort of interesting how that is, because I probably didn't do much here where the baby would mostly be laying and connecting.
Consciously or not?
not conscious.
Yeah.
Not really, not conscious at all, which is kind of cool. But so it's just like really connecting to your own body, really revering your own body. I'm big on that, is teaching, especially when I was a yoga teacher, I'd always talk about, how you touch your own body, self-pleasure. And that's not necessarily through masturbation or nipple stimulation or anything that's erotic. It's more in the actual bringing eroticism into the day-to-day, where you're just touching your body in a really conscious and loving way. And so that's a really big one for me. And then I would do belly binding. So I use for my second birth. My first birth, I used like a Benku. It's not called Benku. I think it's called Benku. It's a traditional Thai wrap to wrap up the abdomen. And I did that for the first 5 days. I would wrap up my abdomen after this ritual of having this sitz bath and massage and things like that.
Is that for splitting, or is that a symbolic thing?
I see it's a more physical thing. So from what I'd studied and what I identified, it is to help the organs move back to their position in the abdominal cavity. And obviously to keep it warm, so that you feel after you've birthed a baby, your abdomen just feels very weak and open. So
sometimes it literally does open, not only from a surgical point of view, but diastasis recti.
Oh, for sure.
It just splits.
Yeah.
So your capacity to hold
the center,
your stuff, everything together has
diminished.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, so it feels like, I think the baby kind of, I have had pretty severe separation from my second baby, a little bit in my first two, but my second baby, and I'm imagining the third too, I will be.
You know what to do now.
Fantastic. But right, it's just, it is. So I don't really believe that there is this idea, and if you use the shorts, there's certain shorts that you can wear that hope to hold everything in and are really amazing, and every physio will recommend them to help bring the body back in, because that actually, that's going to help the tissue connect, and that's so good. And I don't necessarily believe that's the case, because
I think it can. Just going off what you said.
Yeah. So a pair of pants aren't going to do that. However, from my perspective, energetically, we've got to think of it in that sense. It's holding everything back together.
So it's got its place.
Totally.
But it doesn't, I would really argue, it's like those posture straps.
Oh, yeah.
They just, no.
Yeah, right.
No, I can't. The brain has to know. But I'm saying even with those shorts, the brain has to be aware. And because the body operates on what's called the MEN system, minimal electrical neuromuscular stimulation. So as soon as they turn off, they have to be consciously switched back on. Mm-hmm. You can't get a pair of shorts to do the job. That's not how it works.
Cool.
That's my little...
Yeah, but I mean, I feel this 100%. But there's these beautiful $150 shorts that you can buy, and nearly every woman I know has them. And I mean, I wore them and they did feel really nice. They really do hold you together, and they do a job. I am really big on that, like housing the center again. So that is positive, but we've got to be clear on what they're actually doing.
That makes more sense.
Yeah. And then from a TCM perspective, we look at things that we want to avoid through the postpartum. So actually what you said last week about no bathing, or essentially no... so the thing is, in TCM postpartum, we don't want the cold in. It's almost like through birth, we are like that empty cup and all the heat is gone.
Right.
So we really don't want the cold in. We want warm feet. We want warm body. We want complete nourishment. There is traditional practices that are like steaming the body, where you lay over a steam, like a fire that literally steams your whole body, and then you're massaged you're laying over these leaves that are steaming into your system, and then you're massaged and wrapped up and like mummified and then put into bed, and then you're left like kept in your bed for 2 weeks and you don't move, and you it's like all of this just like nourish, keep warming, just stay calm. So things like actually bathing was sort of for the first 40 days is very like from a traditional perspective, especially traditional Chinese perspective, is, it's a no-no. So and it was interesting because I did a bit of a literature review, and there was some pretty interesting Westerners that went over there to be like, oh, you must, if you've got if you've had some form of lesion or tear in the perineum, then you must, clean because there's going to be risk of infection. And
of course.
And they found that there was no high risk of infection.
No.
There was no high risk of anything, and other than that, and the mothers didn't bathe at all for a month. So like that is definitely didn't wash their hair or get wet. So it's different now because we have central heating. We can keep ourselves fairly warm, but it's just being really conscious of that, being cold. Definitely in the first 40 days, we don't want squatting. So no bending down.
Bending or squatting?
Well, how do you bend without squatting?
Well, bending's from the hip, squatting's typically with the legs first.
Oh.
Yeah.
Bending to me is from the knees. If you're going to bend.
That explains a lot. But a new mother bends down all the time.
Oh, okay, I get it. That bend, that movement like that.
Bending motion, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So no, it's more, squatting. Right.
So you can't squat.
No squatting.
How do you go to the toilet?
Oh, you just don't. You stand up and hope the best.
That's what those shorts are really for.
Yes.
That's more of a nappy, you'd say. Okay. Excellent. Now we're getting somewhere.
Okay, so so sitting on the toilet is probably not ideal from a TCM perspective.
But even in
I would probably accept I think the squatting from their perspective is probably the deepest squat.
Yeah.
But and it's interesting because I think with my second birth, I really wanted to do the sitz bath, but we didn't have a bath. And so I thought I would get this. So sitz bath is essentially you sit in a pot of water. You don't have to be in a bath.
I just had an image.
Okay. And I really wanted to do that. And then I kind of got this bean bag and I got this like pot and I put all the herbs in it, and I hadn't thought this through. And then I sort of had to squat down to put my bottom in it. And Hampers, my partner, was looking at me. He's like, how did you think you were going to fit in that bucket? And I ended up being like in the bucket, sort of like bent legs, like kind of like bottom in the bucket. And I was kind of stuck there. And I was like, it didn't work. It didn't work. I need help. And the water's sort of overflowing. No photos. But I like, there's water going all over his bean bag. And I'm like, he's like, what are you thinking? I'm like, yeah, well, I just wanted to get the bottom half of me in this bucket. And he's like, the bucket's too small. And I'm like, I didn't think this through. Anyway.
Great idea at the time.
It felt like a great idea at the time. Yeah. Didn't work out. But
we learn and we move on.
Yes. So that's, but it was afterwards I felt a bit of a sensation like I shouldn't have done that. That felt very vulnerable to the base of my body.
Right.
And I like had a lot too much pressure going downwards and outwards. So this idea of, say, 5 days in the bed, 5 days around the bed and 5 days in the home, I think is the very minimum that we should be focusing on for a woman in her postpartum.
So say that again.
5 days in bed.
Yep.
5 days around the bed.
Yep.
And 5 days in the home. So overall, your 15 days is in the home. Right. But you don't actually leave the house for that time. And I remember my first baby, I was at home for 3 weeks and I didn't leave the house at all. And when I did leave the house, it felt so foreign, just to get in the car. I was like, ooh. Yeah. Or like to put my feet on the earth. I was like, ah. But it did feel really nice to do that as well, of course, reconnecting. But then there is something in that, I think, to because once you break the pop the bubble of that home birth place or that space, it's open. So the energy is open and I mean, if that doesn't serve you, you've got to listen to your intuition, of course, too.
But most people probably listening to this were likely born in a hospital.
Yeah. I mean, I was born in a hospital.
I think I was.
What do you mean you think you were?
I think, yeah. Well, I was thinking like back in the...
Oh, when you were born in the 1800s.
In the
cave.
I
forgot you were born in medieval times.
You don't listen to me. No, but people... So that 555, how would that apply to them?
For the medieval people?
For the hospital people.
Okay.
The medieval people.
I don't know. I'm like, well, there's none of those here, so I'm not talking to them. For you, for the late. So I would say that usually you've got 3 days in the hospital bed, ideally staying in the hospital bed. Try not to have that shower unless you really want it. But it's cold in hospital, so you want to like make sure that you're packing warm things. So you've got your dressing gown, you've got your long socks, you've got your merino wool jammies that have a button up and down. Ideally, or you don't have a top on and you're wearing just a dressing gown that you can like literally hold the baby, wrap the baby inside there. Ideally, you spend the time in your birth space for the 3 to 5 days. I think that's one thing about surgery birth is that you do get that, which is, I don't know, a good thing or a bad thing, but at the very least, you are kind of given that opportunity to be cared for in whatever capacity they offer in that place, but it's still, there's a care space in that. I'm such an advocate for birthing in a safe place that is away from the noise and the lights and safety in safety, so at home. And I just watch women do that and I see the power that is offered from that place and space. So if you are, but even then I have plenty of home birthing women that don't stay at home. That are like, I feel fantastic 3 days after birth. I'm going to go for a walk. It just feels so good to do so. And then I see them in, I have a few patients or clients. It's been quite fun because I'm like, get back to bed. And they look at me, they're like, oh. And I'm like, no, like this is,
I think there's that from my, I guess, exposure to that. I don't work with this near as much as you do. In my exposure to it, women want to get out and about and start exercising and start training again because they want to get back to that original body shape.
Okay.
That's what I see.
Yeah.
And there's so much pressure, especially if you're a professional, especially if you have something to do with media or on camera. I was treating a news presenter years ago and they wanted her back within 1 month, essentially back to before she fell pregnant. And it's just not, no.
Yeah, it's just a hard no. In traditional Chinese medicine, we see the first 40 days as being a preparation for the next 18 years of your child's life or your life. So how you do your postpartum is setting you up.
Is there a reason for 40?
I think the first 40 days, I don't know exactly 40, it's 6 weeks.
Right.
There's something to that. Maybe we should look into it. But it's sort of just accepted that it's 40 days. I don't know. They told us it's 40. I wrote it down and now it's confirmed.
Awesome.
I was thinking maybe it's the first moon, but it's not. It's more than a moon. It's a moon and a half. So maybe there's something in that. Maybe it's from the birth to the next new moon. So if you birthed on the full moon, then the next new, like not the next new moon, but the next new moon, you get going again.
Yeah.
Maybe there is something in that.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick to that now.
Cool.
That came through and I'm going to accept that.
Go with it.
You essentially wait 2 moons.
That's what it would have been back in the day.
Yeah.
So
I'll wait until the second moon.
Right, cool, yep.
Oh, we're good to go. Yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
Let's get out there. Or it may not have been, right? Because there's also the idea of the mother birthing the baby in the rice field and then putting the baby on and keeping going. I don't really believe that story, but essentially that's sort of one of the stories that have been told.
Yeah.
Maybe you remember back to your medieval birth and can remember how that was.
Oh, those are the days.
Okay, I just wanted to touch on a few big things. Yeah, just the importance of preparing for the postpartum and then being conscious of what that is. So conscious of how can I sit the month? How can I have time to just be? How can I have time to be laying, like, not just sitting up, but actually laying flat on my body, flat on my back. And in doing that, I'm allowing my baby to bond with me and just be skin to skin with me, eating up all those microbials and really building their immune system and building it from a place that isn't vibrationally dysregulated. So you are held and revered and loved on so that they are held and revered and loved on.
And going back to that skin thing, people will, I mean, we're in a clean freak almost age now where everything has to be wiped down. Everything has to be 99.9% bacteria killed. We are bacteria. Our immune system is bacteria. We are 10 times more bacteria than we are human. There is so much bacteria in our environment. I would be here all day
looking at bacteria,
interacting with bacteria. So it's not the bacteria per se that makes you sick. It's the effect that what it activates within the body. And it's usually an activation of detox, which is what they claim viruses to do. So that's what makes you sick. It's not the bacteria per se, but we need the bacteria.
Absolutely.
I interrupted. Keep going.
No, it's really good. That's it. And so in the postpartum, a really big thing that came up through my research was, or my literature review specifically, was we try not to carry anything for the first 60 days or 40 days or 2 moons. Physically. So, like a lot of the recommendations that they put on women that have a surgery birth are the things that actually would be really good for a woman to be laying down and not actually collecting her baby, but having them given to her or having them lay right next to her for always.
Yeah.
To be sharing a bed with your baby so that they are constantly in contact with you. So their environment is you still, because they believe they're still part of you.
Well, the baby thinks it's you till it starts talking, really. The ego doesn't really start coming online till 2-3 years of age.
Yeah. So we want to be really connected to that as well. We want to move less, we want to read less, and we want to consume less, which is really hard in our day and age when we have this like computer that sits in the palm of our hand and keeps feeding us information. And I have a personal experience with this when I was 2 weeks postpartum with my second baby. A friend of mine had naturally shared that she had spoken to someone and she'd showed a photo of my baby, and the response to that was, oh, that baby looks really pale, and they probably needed something more than just being in that time. They look like that looks really dangerous. And I remember I was 2 weeks postpartum, this kid's 2 weeks old. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? And because I'd had a moment through my own birth with my second baby, where they transitioned slowly. So instead of coming out and screaming and crying straight away, my second baby came out pretty much just gently, just slowly. She opened her eyes a few times. She didn't cry. She didn't breathe as such as you'd expect. She didn't really cough and splutter. She took slow time and took about 6 to 7 minutes to completely come to the point where I was like, here you are. And there was a moment of fear in that, a moment of oh, wow, how does this feel for me? However, I had the support around me that believed and trusted in this moment. And slowly she came to. And maybe that was because in my 8th month of pregnancy, I hadn't really supported her lungs as much as supporting my own. And I was experiencing fear and disconnect and disharmony. And maybe that when she did come to life or come into human life, that she wasn't fully ready because she hadn't felt that energetic transition. I can look at that on reflection. However, in that moment, there was a piece of fear. I then was softened with that fear because my support system was just in complete love and devotion, and they could see that she was coming to, but she was moving at her pace. And I truly believed that too, but there was a piece of me that fear still did come. Anyway, that dissipated. But then 2 weeks later, when I was reminded of that maybe I hadn't done enough. I had a beautiful baby, feeding, sleeping, nourished, big and plump. Everything about her was amazing. My healing was perfect in terms of I felt really well. But then this seed was dropped. And all of a sudden I derailed. And then because I had this beautiful little machine in my hand, I could check what could have happened, or what would I maybe done, or how would I, and obviously I birthed from an ancestral space. So it's not the same as had I birthed in a registered model, my baby would have been cord cut and taken away.
Yeah.
So this place to traverse is very different. It is very instinctual, and it takes you in a different direction. It's always about coming back and introspecting, and then obviously having a support team that do see and trust and acknowledge birth and have that awareness around it. So either way, I was really vulnerable. And by having this little phone next to me, I was able to consume more, which sent me more into a spiral of, oh, wow, and I am me. I am pretty conscious and aware of what's going on. I was very much trusting in that moment, but that seed was planted. And that brought that fear back, and that brought that distrust in what I had believed in.
And since, say, postpartum depression is on the rise, do you think that would obviously play a huge role in that? Because you've got to keep up with the Joneses, right?
Yeah, I would say more than anything is that we do not have the ancestral model floating through our bones. We do not have the women that birth their babies that believe in birth to the extent that we need them.
Yeah.
My mother's generation, probably yours too, is like the beginning of obstetric, like empowerment. So when that was empowered, epidurals were introduced. Surgical birth was on the rise. Not to the extent of today, where we're actually looking at almost 40% of all birth is a surgical birth. There's enough literature to say that should be around 10%. And more than that is an indicator that there is something really wrong and they're not necessary. Either way, coming back to this idea of that vulnerability. And what was that? What did you just say before?
About the postpartum depression.
Yeah, so postpartum depression, I would say there's so many layers to that. I would say most of the postpartum depression aspect comes from the way you birth and comes from the way you traverse pregnancy, which comes from the way you traverse preconception.
Which is the way you kind of do life.
Yeah.
Really, yeah.
So, our systems are not set up to support the actual physiology of birth and postpartum. Our systems are set up to get you back to work. And I really have this, babies are almost pushed out of the womb so that we don't have to wait too long before that mother can be economically, productive again. It's like, we have these systems set up so that the mother can be, back at work.
Yeah.
Get the kid in care. At 6 weeks available, they can come to care. It's like, whoa, that mother should essentially have been in bed for almost 6 weeks, let alone be preparing to It's
assuming that was a fairly, let's say, simple birth as well.
Yeah. And so we're not even, just to have the Edinburgh scale to be like, oh, she didn't want to hurt herself. What is that? There's no support in that, going to someone and going, here's a scale, best of luck. Oh, you did good. You're okay. There's no spiritual companionship that is embedded in our society, in our culture, to actually hold a woman through this transition. It is a massive transition. Motherhood is a lot harder than I'd like to believe. you know? And I know this idea of, oh, we need the village. Of course we needed the village. The village doesn't exist right now. We have to create what is the next best thing.
Yeah.
And that can be in preparing ourselves for a birth with the right people around us. That can be preparing ourselves for the postpartum. So no matter how the birth turned out, I have enough people around me that are going to feed me, love me, revere me, and
just
hold
let you
me
rest
and
first.
let me rest.
Yeah.
Because rest is the answer to everything. And so one thing is like, oh, I know I need to rest, but how can I rest? Well, we need to get these things in place.
Well, because you've got this brand new human that you're in charge of.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got your constant, the mother instincts kick in. I've got to look after, I've got to look after, I've got to laugh. But you said, as you said, you've got that community around you. So you can get a few hours of sleep here and there. And you trust the people who are in that little village. And so you can decide what goes in that cup. Because if that cup stays empty and you're worried about the cup being empty and you're worried about what's around the cup, these layers add on to just further depletion, not only of the body, but your emotions, your mental capacity, and your spirit just dwindles.
Yeah, and I think it would be really cool to do a study on how women traverse that first month of postpartum and how well they feel at 6 months. Because if you do, like, I can attest that my first baby, the first 3 weeks were really well looked after. After that, my partner went back to work and I sort of lost a bit of the village in a sense of what was around me. However, at 6 months, I hadn't slept next to it all. And I felt quite okay. Like, I was not mentally incapable. I was not emotionally wrecked. And then I went back to work and work actually rattled me more than what the first 6 months. But it was obvious because I wasn't sleeping very well. My baby was feeding, and I was very much in the sense of like just trusting and going with. So I always went with. When she wanted to be fed, she was fed. When she wanted to sleep, she slept. When she didn't want to sleep, well, I would try and put her to sleep and she just didn't want to sleep. So we just ended up spending a lot of time together, skin to skin, me holding her, and that was it. And that actually felt really good for me. So I think that I moved through that really dark time quite okay. And the same with my second baby, she slept a lot better. So by 6 months after having support for my first, for that first month, even though I was traversing really big emotions for my second daughter, there was lots of guilt, there was lots of disharmony that I was watching her experience. And, that took a year for us to kind of work through. Now she's like, preparing for the big sister role again, which feels very different for her now. And I'm sure she doesn't really have the cognitive recognition of what it was like at that point. But there's layers to everything. And I imagine if you've had a fourth and a fifth baby and all of the things that come with that, more awareness, more experience. That obviously is serving more. But the more we lean in, listen in, take the little bits. But what was I going to say? With all things, remember you are trying your best and you will heal because you're made to. And to thrive, you must believe that you can live life fully. So it's like, just that kind of consciousness around you're made for this. You're made to heal from this. And then how can you help yourself thrive? Because you have to believe that that's possible. But I think that if we can support the journey and obviously the spiritual journey of pregnancy, postpartum, and honour that, honour your journey, however it is. I have plenty of friends and patients that don't do as I do. There's not many people that birth at home, although it is becoming more popular, which is beautiful to see. Then there's also, there's not many people that will put a good dollar into their postpartum. But I see it time and time again, like that energetic transference is massive.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So I was speaking to a patient the other day who told me that her doctor told her that she asked, how long should I breastfeed? And the doctor said, 6 to 8 months. That seems a bit short for me.
Yeah, I mean, breastfeeding is another one. Like, obviously, that is really important for connection. It's really important for baby's growth. It's the best meal for a baby. Obviously, your breast milk, even best, like absolute best option.
And science can't mimic it.
No, it can't. But that's not to say that you can't do if something isn't working because you are feeling a lot of things. That you emotionally have been shaken, not gently stirred through a process.
So what you did there.
That becomes hard.
Yeah.
And, what is most important is that mother also feels safe and held and nourished to choose her choice, to make her choice. But, I am a massive breastfeeding advocate, but I don't, my choices and my belief is that it is the best source of nutrients, especially for the first year of life and beyond, not only for nutrients, but for the bonding that it creates between mother and child. My circle of people breastfeed. I've breastfed both of my babies until between 18 and 20 months, 22 months almost. For my second, and I don't know, I don't know, there's some reason why people say not to breastfeed for longer. I think it really is a mother's intuitive journey. I think that you should want to breastfeed your child. It is absolutely the most natural thing you can do.
It's not only that, it's good for the mum as well.
Fantastic for the mother. That connection that is created. I think there was a really cool study done about looking into a baby's eyes and the way that actually heals. And if you've ever breastfed and you've looked into your child's eyes as they're breastfeeding, it is like one of the most, it's like this circular energetic connection that I'd have to say I've only ever experienced again with my children once they finish their breastfeeding journey, whilst doing a session with one of our clinicians here, Sam, who is an osteopath, but a very spiritual osteopath. And seeing them look in my eyes after one of her sessions was the next time I saw that again.
So not only is it good for the connection, but speaking of the splitting of the abdominals, it's one of the quickest ways to bring that back naturally. As the infant bites down and draws back, not only is the infant getting their temporomandibular joint conditioned, they're also they're waking up their multifidus muscles, so they're actually getting spinal conditioning at the same time. And because the breast has nerve fibers that it shares with the uterus, it causes the uterus to contract, and it actually brings the abdominal wall back into its original condition. So the body goes back to what it knows pre-pregnancy. So everyone wins, really.
Honestly, the complexity and simplicity of the human form is, we have to revere that. And we have to honor this species that we are. And I think that the postpartum is such an important point and poignant point in a woman's life to actually, especially post-birth and all of those things. You've just transitioned. This is the aftermath of that. And you're now learning this new human's way of being and your new life.
Yeah.
And for many women, that can feel really overwhelming. Of course, understandably so. So it's even more imperative that we focus on how we can do this better. I know personally, I've got this list here of what I'm planning on doing. So in my postpartum this time around, I am going to, I'm bringing in a few more people. I have one of my best friends coming down to spend a week with me to just do whatever I need. I have another best friend to come and, massage my body. I've asked my parents to kind of either look after the kids or do dinner. I'm going to, in preparation for my home, I want to get some nice new sheets for my bed, adjusting some furniture around, prepping my birth space, looking into extra care for the kids, whether that's a few hours or how that might look, making sure that I've got enough of my own herbs for those postpartum meals. So this is me doing my preparation for the postpartum, is like making my environment feel really lush and nourished. I also have sort of been vetoed, but I've got these matching pajamas that I want to buy for me and the kids. And Hampus asked me the other day, do I get a say in this? I was like, nah, man, you don't. He's like, that's a $400 invoice. You are not getting pajamas for $400. I was like, I think I might be. I think we might be matching. And I'm like, if you want a pair, I think they only sell women, so I'll try to get you extra large. We'll try for the best.
Smile and nod, Hamps.
But yeah, just like all these little bits and pieces to just, that is my preparation for my initial postpartum. And then obviously from that point on is just ensuring that I'm not alone. I think that is one of the biggest things is that we do this thing where we disconnect from people and we connect to our phone and we trust the information that we're receiving instead of when missing out on that ancestral wisdom that is passed down from generation to generation. And I feel like we're waking it back up and igniting that in whatever way we are. So thank you for listening, everyone. Was there something more you wanted to share about postpartum, Matt?
I think that was a good wrap.
Good wrap. If you need any extra support in the postpartum, if you live in the southern Sydney area, we have resources, and I might actually post some of those at the bottom of this in the notes. What are they called?
Do we have notes?
Yeah, on the Spotify thing.
On the blurby.
Yeah, on the notes section, we're going to share some people that
some resources.
That's what I'm.
Yes.
So you can receive some resources, some people that will be able to guide you, and some options that I recommend and Matt recommends in terms of how to prepare yourself. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that one.
Thanks.
What? Peace.
Thanks, everyone.
You've been listening to The Wizard and the Priestess. Thanks for stopping by. Stay connected and be open.